And there's intimacy on the radio, and there's naturalness on the radio that can never be replicated on TV. The marvelous resurgence of radio as a political force in this country.
News-related radio programming is evolving.
There's a huge hole in our dialogue that can be filled by the synthesis of traditional radio and the freedom that comes from a live podcast. You're about to experience Cowboy State Politics live. Here we go. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to another tremendous installment from very high above all the insipid and puerile forms of Wyoming mainstream media. This is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics Studio in Sheridan, Wyoming. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. Happy Wednesday. First, let me say thank you for waiting an hour for this morning's broadcast. It's very important that we have the air conditioning here at Cowboy State Politics headquarters, and so I had to postpone this morning's show so we could get the AC guy going. But he's hard at work, and pretty soon we'll have the air conditioning fixed, which is going to be fantastic. I can't tell you how excited I am about that. But anyway, on today's program at 9:30, we're going to have Karen Weber, who is running for Senate District number 5. She's going to join us for the program, and then we'll find out why she decided to run. You'll really like her. I had the pleasure of visiting with her. I guess it was probably a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. Nice lady, and we'll find out why she's running for the Wyoming Senate. And there's a lot of other things going on. As you could imagine, politics in the Cowboy State, as Al Simpson said, and I don't like to quote him, but this one is totally accurate. But he said in Wyoming, everything is politics. Except for politics, that's personal. And it has absolutely become personal. We published a couple of stories on the Open Range Record just to show you how personal it's become. Americans for Prosperity is spending a buttload of money across the state. I cannot wait until the FEC filings are due and we find out exactly how much money Americans for Prosperity has spent. I mean, in multiple mailers, in multiple districts. And Tyler Lindholm has promised that things are only going to get a little bit spicier, as he called it. But the truth is, Americans for Prosperity, they couldn't tell the truth if it was staring at them in the mirror. All of the, like, if you look at the mailers that they send out, look specifically at the bill that they cite. And probably the worst one was House Joint Resolution 3, which we published an article about that one on the Open Range Record. But what that one was to amend the Constitution to allow voters to decide if Wyoming should be a nuclear waste dump. And I think that's a big one. Now, certainly we don't live in a democracy, and I wouldn't want every decision put to a vote. I mean, I think that's antithetical to the way that our country works. But I think that turning our state into a nuclear waste dump, and to be fair, it's not going to be the whole state. It wouldn't be the whole state. It would just simply be, a nuclear waste dump. But I think that is unique. That's something that doesn't go away. It's something that you can't clean up. There's no way that you can turn it into a Superfund site and go clean it up. I mean, that decision is for forever. Well, that's what House Joint Resolution 3 was. And most of the conservatives voted for it. Well, Americans for Prosperity is saying that's a vote against energy. That's a vote backing bureaucrats. That's a vote against Wyoming families. See, none of those things even line up with the bill. I wouldn't create regulations. In fact, I wouldn't create any regulations at all. It's just an up or down vote of the people. And that a constitutional amendment would have to pass anyway. So it couldn't possibly be a vote for any sort of regulations. Secondly, it couldn't be a vote against energy. Now, the people could vote against energy, I suppose, if that thing passed, but not the resolution itself, and it certainly wasn't voting against Wyoming families, which is their claim. So all of those attacks, and here's the thing, Americans for Prosperity knows that most people, not this audience, of course, this audience is by far the most informed of any part of the constituency. And thank you for that, by the way. If there's one thing that trips my trigger more than anything, is to see something that we've talked about on the program be used elsewhere. So one of you watches or listens to a story on Cowboy state politics, and then you go look it up for yourself and go use it in your own social media posts. I got to tell you, that turns my crank better than anything else. But that's what you guys do. Unfortunately, most people and most voters are not like that. And AFP knows that they're just going to look at it and say, oh, well, that dirty guy, how dare he vote for more regulations? So that part is personal. It's to defeat personalities, not policies. Now, if you're curious about, and I think Speaker Chip Nyman is making some really funny videos. Every time he gets a flyer, he makes a video and says, hey, check out this one. And those same mailers are being sent out across the state. There's another piece that we published about, well, let me go look at it. I'll tell you which district it was. District 40, House District 48. That's down in Sweetwater County. And that's Darren McCann's district. Same thing there. So at least while Americans for Prosperity is saving money on printing costs, or design costs, rather. They still have to print them. But same thing is being sent all across the state and multiple different variations of it. So just be wise when you open up your mailbox and you see that stack of flyers in there. I used to keep them all, but this election, there's been so many of them that I'm pretty sure I don't have a full set. It's like collecting baseball cards in the 1980s. 1980s baseball card companies printed zillions of cards, which means that most of them probably aren't really worth anything. But you'd go buy a pack of baseball cards, and most of them would just be, common cards, and rarely would you get a good one. That's kind of how it is when you open up your mailbox. Oh, man, I've already got this flyer. Dang, I was trying to collect the whole set. But that's pretty much what it's like. There's a great piece in the Cowpie by Dave Simpson, which he's talking about this very thing, and he goes through some of the common themes in a lot of these political mailers. Everybody's a fighter. Everybody is going to go to Washington, D.C. like a bull in a china shop. All of them are cowboys, and don't you dare accuse them of not being. And except for Steve Freeze. Steve Freeze just has a picture of a cowboy hat because he doesn't want to put one on that awesome head of hair that he has. Just kidding, Steve. It's funny, you got to admit. But it has the vitriol. I don't even like that word. The personal nature of the political attacks has even filtered down to the local level. Top story on the Open Range Record right now, at least for the time being anyway, is how the Mills mayor is going after Neil Jeske in a lot of really false attacks. In a couple of her videos, she claimed that he's not qualified to run for the Wyoming House of Representatives. And so the Open Range Record dug into that, and we've got the documents. They're there in the article. You can look at them yourself. It absolutely proves that he's lived in his district for more than 1 year, which is the requirement to run for the House of Representatives. And so, and it's fascinating watching her responses, by the way. Hey, Leah, reach out. You've got my phone number. Call me. She won't do that, of course. Now, the interesting part about that is she's using her official Facebook page, Mayor of Mills Facebook page, to disseminate all of this. So go check that out. And I think that it underscores another point, too. You need to do your own research. When you hear something about a candidate, go look it up for yourself, especially if it's about their voting record, because all of that information is pretty accessible. You can go to wildledge.gov and look at every single bill. I can't tell you how many social media posts I've seen where, this person voted the wrong way on this bill, and this bill. Well, go look them up. Go to wildledge.gov and see how they voted. What you'll find is some of those attacks are probably not very accurate. And so that's why it's incumbent upon you to go do your own research. And I'm not telling you guys anything that you don't already know. But do your own research because not that I like quoting Tyler Lindholm, but things are getting spicy. All right, so top story, I think, is that Eric Barlow, has released a poll, and it's fantastic, and the cow pie loves it. In fact, they've got a big article about it entitled "Barlow Campaign Releases Poll Claiming Big Lead Over Meganfelder and Brent Behan." Now, polls are interesting because you have to know what's behind them in order to judge whether they are authentic or not. And most of the time, when it's a politician releasing a poll, first thing, okay, so if it is from a politician, it is immediately suspect. I mean, you shouldn't believe anything shouldn't take anything at face value because they're politicians. And because they're probably releasing the poll on the first day of early voting, which might be a little bit suspect. But some important things when you're looking at polls. First, you have to know how many people they polled. So what was the sample size in the poll? Secondly, you need to know about the demographics in the poll. Who did they talk to? Did they talk to old people exclusively, or did they talk to young people? Were they Republican or Democrat, or were they all Democrats, or were they all Republicans? Did they work? Are they more wealthy people, or are they more poor people? Usually you don't get that part of it, but the Democrat, Republican, that's pretty important, because if you were to only poll Democrats, if Barlow had only polled Democrats, which we don't know because he didn't release that information, but if he had only polled Democrats, obviously he's going to score better in the poll. Similarly, if the pollster only called Republicans, his poll numbers are going to look a lot different. So that's really important because it tells you how fair the poll is. So that in concert with the sample size tells you a great deal about the information that you're reading. So to the article, and I quote, State Senator Eric Barlow released poll results Tuesday showing him with a sizable lead over the other Republicans in the race for Wyoming governor. Two of his opponents doubt the outcome. One of them doesn't. Barlow, a legislator for 13 years and former House Speaker, is running for the Republican nomination. We all know that, blah, blah, blah. His campaign released polling results Tuesday showing him at 42%. Wow, that's quite a sizable lead, I would say. Followed by Meganfelder at 19% and Brent Behan at 4%, with 22% undecided. When people were asked who they would vote for if the election were held today. Well, let me tell you one other thing that this poll shows. I'm going to get my trusty calculator here. Let's see here. 19 plus 14 plus 22. 55% of the respondents in that poll did not vote for Eric Barlow. So more than half would not cast a vote for Eric Barlow. So that's a handy piece of information. But according to his poll, 42% say that they would vote for him. Let's see here. The poll was taken in the past 3 days by Pulse Decision Science Firm. I've never heard of them. That doesn't mean anything. I'm not all-knowing about pollsters. The campaign says, quote, Barlow has gained 10 points since our campaign's previous survey, and his net favorability has climbed from 19% to 30, or from plus 19 to plus 34, says a Tuesday statement by his campaign. Of course they do. This comes even as he's been outspent more than 5-1 by Meganfelder and other outside groups supporting her. Barlow says he's taken 6 full trips through all 23 of Wyoming's counties and is starting his 7th tour. I'm sure. Now, so what are the specifics in the poll? Well, they only talked to 400 people. 400 people out of 586,000. Well, the truth is, so let's do some math here. Trusty calculator again. So 586,000. Let's see here. And only half of the people who are eligible to vote actually voted. But let's just use 586,000 just to find out exactly what percentage of the population his pollster talked to. Uh-oh, I did something wrong there. Hold on. Let's see here. So 586,000. Nope. We need to do 400. Divide by 586,000. That's a really, 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 really small number. In fact, it has let's see here, 0.0006% of the population is the number of people that Eric Barlow surveyed. Secondly, there's no explanation in the poll as to what the demographics were. No Republican, no Democrat, no old people, no young people. None of that. No explanation whatsoever. And the margin of error on the poll, at least the one that they disclosed, was 4.95%, or 4.9%, excuse me. High margin of error, no demographics on the poll, only 400 people, which is 0.0006% of the population. So this poll means less than the Medicaid expansion poll that Nancy Case always talks about. That one was only 500 people, and he claimed that everybody, the vast majority of Wyoming citizens, want Medicaid expansion. So what I'm telling you is this poll is meaningless. It means absolutely nothing. And if you're not going to disclose the data behind the poll, there's no reason why you should pay any attention to it whatsoever. So let's go ahead and take a quick break. And I see Karen Weber has joined the room. So we'll talk to her a little bit earlier than we expected. So, but that's okay. We got a short program today, and so if we were a little bit more efficient with our time, that's a good thing. So let's go ahead and take a break. And when we come back, we'll have Karen Weber back in a minute. The calendar says that it's summer, and you believe it. Well, that's just so cute. But you obviously haven't lived here very long, have you? And you probably think that the weather is just going to continue to warm up. You don't have to worry about snow or ice or 30-degree temperatures anymore. In case you've forgotten, this is Wyoming, my friend, and that sort of thinking doesn't work here. 1 minute, it could be 75 and sunny, and 10 minutes later, snow. Whatever the weather, you need a pair of socks that'll keep your feet cool and dry even on the hottest of summer days. And if you happen to run into that freak midsummer snowstorm, trust me, it's happened. I've seen it. You'll stay nice and toasty warm. Well, your feet anyway. To get you a pair, go to the website, thebuffalowoolco.com. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. These are the finest socks that I've ever put on my feet. Are you one of those people that said something like this before Trump became president?
I have a house in Spain that is going to be ready right after the election.
Siberia,
Nova Scotia.
I'm definitely moving to Canada.
Straight to hell. Iceland.
France.
Asia's pretty cool.
And has the last year and a half been more than you could bear? Well, if it has, you've come to the right place. Call my friend Rebecca Bextel at eXp Realty. She has her fingers on the pulse of the real estate market all across the state of Wyoming. Last year, she sold around $30 million worth of property. Everything from small residential properties all the way up to big giant ranches. So if you've got to get the heck out of Dodge, if you've got to be gone Johnson because you can't stand that Trump is the president, call Rebecca Bextel. Her phone number is 307-699-3519. Let me say that one more time for you in case you missed it. 307-699-3519.
I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day, don't you? Well, I can show you how. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. I've
Cowboy State Politics is only expanding. The Cowboy State Politics Live program, the podcast, which I'll publish right after today's show. And now the open range record, which, by the way, is a little bit bigger than any of the mainstream media ever wanted it to be. Welcome back to the program. Thank you for watching this morning. Joining us now is Karen Weber. Now, Karen is running for Senate District number 5. Good morning, Karen. How are you?
Good morning. Doing very well today. Thank you for asking.
All right. So let's give you the treatment that everybody gets. Why don't you just take a couple minutes and tell my audience about yourself?
Okay. Well, I've been a registered nurse for 40 years. I've worked in leadership in hospitals and other types of healthcare organizations, all the way from the Mississippi to the Pacific. And the reason why I did that is because I have an ability to be able to actually solve very long, old problems in new ways for hospitals and organizations. So I'm kind of a fix-it gal. And so that's what I've been doing on contract for the last part of my career. But my husband and I, we own a small cattle ranch here in Goshen County. We moved here 10 years ago to live the cowboy dream, and my husband does. And so we got threatened in our county with wind and solar. And it wasn't just the first solar project. Our planner had said that it was the next 10 that were waiting to come. And I really started thinking to myself, in a few years, we won't even recognize where we live. And I didn't spend my whole life working and really trying to prepare for, the second part of our lives together, to have it literally destroyed. And so I've been fighting for agriculture for the last number of years and actually had a lot of success. I was working with a friend of mine, her name is Diane Foster, and we both determined that, none of us wants any of this. So why is this happening? And her comment to me was, well, people have forgotten how to fight. And so we decided that if we were successful with this one project, that we would go everywhere and help all of the farmers and ranchers and others that are impacted negatively by all this anywhere in the state of Wyoming. And I went over to even Scotts Bluff. They were going to give a permit that night. I spoke and mentioned how you really need to have strong protections against, for the benefit of your people against this. And so they canceled the permit that night. Up in Natrona County, the Haystack, worked with those people. How they got my name is through Rachel Hedges, which is somebody that is working with Harriet Hageman. So I've developed a reputation. I went up to Glen Rock. I've been to Lusk. I spoke with Mr. Prosser in Laramie County, and also Wendy Volk earlier on, and encouraged her to really get numbers of people. And so went to one of their commissioner meetings, and they successfully put the reps all on hold. That project would have been 3 times the size of Cheyenne. So anyway, I've been actively involved in saving agriculture for a long time. So naturally, I've met a lot of different people. And this seat came open when Scott Smith had decided to go to become the treasurer. And he has endorsed me. Chuck Gray has endorsed me because of my work with saving agriculture. And so I've got those 2 great endorsements. They trust me. I've also been endorsed by the Wyoming Liberty for You in Casper. And also I go to Hartville a lot. You may have heard of that.
Maybe, just a little bit. So you're running for Senate District 5, right?
Yes. No,
okay.
House
District 5. Okay. I wondered because I was, when I put that on the chalkboard this morning, I was like, wait a minute. But, I've talked to so many people that, make a mistake every now and again. So anyway, you decided to run for the legislature. And let me just ask you a couple questions. Okay. You mentioned wind and solar and all those projects that you've been fighting against. But here's my question. Let's just say it's a solar company. If a solar company wants to put up a big solar farm and they jump through all of the regulatory hurdles and they've got all the permits and, they've leased the property and everything is above board, why should government have any business messing around with that?
Actually, government should have zero business. I'm for no government overreach, whereas my opponent that I'm working to win the seat from His comment is he believes in local businesses and capitalism require an environment with limited government overreach. So he's accepting of some form of government overreach to thrive and meet the needs of the community. And this is under his supporting agriculture and business topic. That is a no for me. Government has no place, non-zip zilch. And that's part of the reason why we have problems in Wyoming. Government is the number one industry, the number one employer. The huger it gets, the less opportunity for the people. I was just listening, and I'm being a healthcare person, I'm a registered nurse. I was listening in on the June 18th task force meeting, healthcare task force meeting, and they talked about a lot of different things. They really glossed over the problem of health insurers and that whole problem. And they went right to the end where they're going to go ahead and explore doing the purchasing of supplies and equipment. That is absolutely not something that government should ever be involved in. Have we ever known of any government entity or agency that has done anything efficiently? No,
None.
Only businesses
Not one.
do that. Only businesses do that because they have skin in the game. They'll either make it or lose it, unless you're being subsidized, like the wind and the solar and data centers.
Okay, so
you can make it if you're getting free money.
well, yeah, and that's the big problem that I have is I am totally in favor of private business doing, if you want to set up shop somewhere, I don't really care what the business is, and you jump through all the hoops just like everybody else, and you're not taking any of my money to do it. Yeah, I say go for it.
Right.
But the problem is when we inject government into things. And we give them subsidies and we give them benefits that other businesses don't have, and it's the big projects that we hear about: wind, solar, data centers, those things. But that same philosophy trickles down to smaller businesses at the community level.
That's right.
And we give grants from the Wyoming Business Council to this business and that business, and the guy down the street who maybe does the exact same thing, well, he's not taking any government money,
Right.
but he gets to compete against government. And I just think that's wrong.
And the reason why I believe it's also wrong is because we really shouldn't be using all of the taxpayers' monies to basically support one entity against the smaller entity, which is the people. It deprives them of the opportunity to really, grow business. It deprives them even to enter into business when there's too much. So just think about it this way. We have had a 59% increase in expenditures actually even before Gordon, our government started growing exponentially, now being the largest employer. I mean, what does that really look like? How are we able to actually, have businesses growing in small communities? Even my local town, Torrington, is shrinking. We've lost a lot of different businesses, restaurants, you name it. And yet we've had an economic development here for 19 years. They've absorbed $9 million of our dollars. They're purchasing land, they're purchasing buildings, and they're doing this with all of the taxpayers' funding. However, they're a 501c6, and federal tax law says they cannot actually benefit everybody, but they're taking everybody's money. But they have to benefit their members that pay to belong. This is wrong, David. And they're up on the to be invigorated here in the November ballot. And we have just got to stop doing this because it's actually eating away at what really is going to be helpful to help Wyoming live well.
Okay, so we know what doesn't help small businesses. Let's talk about what does help small businesses. Now, you go to any town in Wyoming, and the lovely Christine and I have done a lot of traveling this summer, quick trips here and there, and we've been to a lot of small communities. And it doesn't really matter which one you're in. You're going to drive down Main Street, and you're going to see empty buildings.
Right.
And I mean, even in bigger towns like Casper, you drive down their Main Street and there's empty buildings. There's in downtown Sheridan, there's two prime locations that are, it's right on Main Street and they're empty. So what is it that we need to do to allow business to prosper? We know what we can't do, which is give money to pick winners and losers. What's the other side of that?
So we've had a problem with our youth, okay? Most productive, potentially with the most potential to be productive in our society here. We've had them leaving Wyoming for decades and decades and decades. The fact that that problem hasn't been solved, we have to actually ask why. Do they really want to solve it? My solution is to, and I know that our Republican House and our appropriations went ahead and gave some additional money to the schools, specifically targeting for students to do more technical things. Not everybody is meant for college, university. And so if these students, okay, before they leave high school, actually got a small opportunity to understand a little bit about economics, how to actually go to the Secretary of State's office and file, how to understand a little bit about cash flows, a little bit about marketing. Someday, if they choose to be a carpenter, they don't have to leave the state to work for somebody else. They can actually stay here, do their own business, and they can provide services for the people in all the communities because we don't have them. I was out walking not long ago and I found a construction project going on, and I was excited to find out who are they, because I went and I looked anyway. They're from another place out of our state, and so I'm hearing that we either get businesses from Fort Collins or from Scotts Bluff, but there's really nothing much here, and that is not necessary. If we continue to do the same thing, we're going to get the same problem. I would like to see us turn this around by having our youth, okay, doing more small business. Small business really is, always has been, the backbone of our state in terms of our economy and actually, living well in the communities. People are telling me they can't find anybody to do simple repairs. They can't, in the end, and in beyond that, because we're getting the big squeeze with our state government basically taking all of our, extra overtaxed money and putting it into various funds all over the place, which personally, I don't even know that anybody knows where they're all at, because I've been
Probably not.
No. And so that in itself is a transparency issue. We have got to, address these real hard problems. It's going to take people who probably aren't the same people that have been in office for all this time, because if they wanted to solve these problems, they would have. Since my background is nothing but problem solving and actually doing something about it, I really believe that I can have a voice for my people in House District 5, and I can make a difference for people all over Wyoming. The notion that we cannot keep our kids because they just leave for a better job. There are a lot of our youth that are actually not able to have small business for various reasons. We need to find ways to support them. Here in Goshen County, there are our local Go Goshen, the economic development a few years ago, actually did sort of like a business incubator, and they failed.
Of course they did.
Of course they
government.
did. Put somebody in charge that actually knows how to do this. I mean, a real person. Let's support real people in our community to do this. There is a business opportunity right there, folks, if you're listening. Go ahead and do some project management. Get that going. There are a lot of young people who have ideas. They just need the guidance. And a little bit
let's switch. I don't mean to interrupt you, but let's switch gears real quick. Okay. You mentioned education. You're from Torrington, okay, so kind of a smaller community, definitely smaller than Sheridan, way smaller than Casper. So the legislature passed a recalibration bill, and essentially it said money that's meant for the classroom, it's got to stay in the classroom. Well, I agree with that. However, there is an argument that says smaller school districts like yours are going to end up getting kind of hurt because you can't move money around for activities. So here's the question. Should we create another silo for extracurricular activities?
I don't think so. I really think they have plenty of money. When they're getting $29,000 per student, or 24, somewhere in between, there's numbers that flip, but it's 24,000. I really believe that they have enough. They need to understand the difference between the essential services and the dreams that we all want to have. I know that sports are very, very important, but we need to, when money is not limitless, then we really have to think about how we make that money work the best that it can with what we've got. Money is not forever. We can't just keep printing money forever and thinking that that's the solution, to just add money to a problem. I will tell you, in healthcare, they fought that battle 25 years ago. And the fact of throwing money at a problem doesn't actually solve it. This I know for sure. And so I believe that they need to really take a hard look at what their spending is, their expenditures, and say to themselves, what things do we need? And it could be that we are really trying to solve a lot of psychosocial problems in the school. I'm hearing from teachers that are saying the behaviors are so out of control that they spend the majority of their time trying to just keep the kids, able to be in a kind of a calm environment. We have a lot of problems in the school district, and really our school boards need to be more actively involved instead of being just political here and political there and fighting. I get the understanding that that's what's happening in a lot of the school districts.
Well, I think that the part of the problem is we're not focusing on what the actual purpose of a school is, which is to educate kids. A couple of years ago, I volunteered for to help out the high school debate team over in Buffalo. And I was shocked to learn that they didn't have to go to school on Friday. That right. The school decided that, hey, there's so many activities on Friday that we just may as well just not even have class. Well, wait a minute. And I know I'm getting old when I say things like when I was your age. But absolutely, when I was in school, man, it didn't matter if you were traveling on a Friday. If there was an assignment due on Friday, you had to have the assignment done. Or you had to have your work done ahead of time and turn it in before you leave. Well, now, heck no. The football team is going to Mountain View, and so we're just not going to go to school. And so I don't think that there's a real emphasis on education, and the scores bear it out.
Yes.
That when you look across the state, I mean, we're not to be indelicate, but as Ken says, we're kind of the cream of the crop. We're mediocre. And I don't care if the Wyoming Education Association says, well, our scores have increased. Yeah, when you're only a couple points above the middle, it's ridiculous. So, question then. We know that the biggest problem in our schools is our students are achieving at a mediocre level. How do you fix that?
Well, we're going to have to take the politics out of education. It's poisoned everything. When DEI is involved, I looked back into some of the reasons why for this. And what I found is that some of the programming actually stems from the criminal justice system. It turns out that they really want kids to behave. So again, we're going back to the psychosocial issues that children are showing up at. You only need one or two students that are very, I would say, attention seeking for various reasons. I mean, they've got maybe things going on at home or whatnot. And then the rest of the students can't learn. I think that the fix on this is going to be stronger school boards that put more pressure on administrators and their teams to hold them to accountability. I sat in a school board meeting where they were just talking about the fact that less than half of the students can actually read and do math. That is unacceptable. And yet,
shocking.
It didn't show up in our newspaper locally.
Of course not.
Of course not. Nobody, and I was shocked. And of course, then the discussion turned to something else because we don't really want to talk about that. I was sitting there shocked. If that were presented to me, that would be the only thing we would be talking about. And so, but this is the level of denial that we are in right now, that everything is okay. Everything's fine. I'll tell you, folks, it's not. I'm a nurse. I'm used to looking at vital signs. Our vital signs are going down, down, down. It's all across the board, including education. I know that our teachers are trying hard. They have been given, just like nurses, and doctors, they've been given so much piled on stuff that now they cannot determine what is the most important thing. There's so many regulations and requirements, and you got to fill this all in. You can't focus on the things that are important if everything is important. And they're being told all these things are important. So they can't actually focus on what you're suggesting, and I would too, which is really the important things. They've got to be able to read and write. And the fact that they don't teach cursive anymore is a major
yeah, that's a major problem.
They have got to be able to read our founding documents.
Well, and, I hosted or moderated a debate in Upton. Not that wasn't last week. I think it was the week before. And one of the questions was, hey, how are we to hold teachers accountable? Because every other profession, you get an employee evaluation. How do you do that with teachers? And the answer I got, hold on just a second. The answer I got was, well, you can't. That's
not true.
hogwash.
No.
That's hogwash.
Totally.
I mean, and I think that teachers, by and large, I think do a great job. However, that even if you're a fantastic employee, you still get the employee evaluation to find out where you can improve. And if we have gaps, well, we've got to identify those. And if half your kids can't read proficiently, then I think there's a problem there. And so I guess a question for you is, how do we hold the education professionals accountable? They're not exempt. I mean, they're just like every other employee. So how do we do that?
Okay, so I can tell you from my experience in healthcare, the first thing you do is you look at the job description. You hold people accountable to their job description. Now, if that no longer is right, annually, as the leader, you go over that job description. You say, is it still applicable? And then you take a look in there and what is new and what can you take away that is no longer relevant. You have a kind of a standard where it's similar to the schools, what they have, that it either meets, it exceeds, or it does not meet the standard. And so then you begin to, as a leader, you begin to work with people to help them understand these are the boundaries. These are the rules of what is required for your position. And this is what it's going to look like. So you do have some individual meetings with a lot of people. Some people, they get it right away. Other people, you need to check in with them very more frequently. But eventually, once you get 60% of the people who understand, this is actually what our target is. This is what we're looking for. If it's a particular separate kind of initiative, like we would like to, do this within this certain period of time, that's the thing you talk about. You talk about that a lot. You would be amazed then over a very short period of time, if you've got some good communication skills and leadership, they'll all want to move in that direction. These are good people. I don't believe they've got the leadership. I know they don't. Because their own leadership is overlooking the poor results, the outcomes of their work. So they have got to actually step in and say, this is no longer acceptable. They're allowing it to happen by their lack of ability. So it's their lack of ability to hold people accountable. These folks do want to do a good job. They don't even mind being held accountable, although some of them will actually actively resist at the beginning. But that's where you look at your A players, your B players, and your C players. You want to encourage and motivate your A players. You want to keep your B players, they're your meat and potatoes. You want to keep them steady and keep checking in on them. Now, your C players have a decision to make. They can go and be successful in their own mind somewhere else, but that doesn't mean they're going to be in your school ruining your children's future potential. So I'm firm on that, and I will tell you that works everywhere. Everywhere I've
Well,
worked.
it does.
And you know what? They end up moving from a position of, they're a little bit nervous, they're scared, into saying, you know what? I understand the fairness and the reasonableness of this. And then they say, you know what? I like working in an environment where we're all actually working on the same page with each other. And then eventually when they start seeing the scores improve, I let them know, be proud. You guys have done the job, and they do. And so they deserve all the credit for all of that, because a leader cannot actually do that alone. The leader actually just points the direction. And so you become a person who has been, maybe they feel suspicious, they feel maybe unhappy. Eventually, even if they don't like you, which you want to get to at least they understand and they like you. But if you don't, they at least get to their I respect you part. And so our administrators are either not respected, they're not leading, they're accepting the failure of the outcomes. And this has nothing to do with the people. No. Administrators need to look at the numbers. They need to look at, what are the outcomes of your work? And if they're not providing for at least meets, then they need to be replaced. There's how long do you tolerate this?
Right. And, we can't continue spending money at it, throwing money at it. Spending is probably not even accurate, but throwing money at the problem and ignoring that, our outcomes kind of stink. So one more question, and then I got to run. Big topic in the legislature is always taxes. We've got a 25% reduction that was passed session before. And that ballot initiative is probably going to pass. I don't see a world in which it won't. So when you get to the legislature, if you get to the legislature, what do you want to do on taxes? Do you have a plan? Talk to me about it.
Actually, I do have a plan. Everybody is really in a state of fear over this. And it's really not necessary. But my plan is that the legislature is going to have to make a decision. Okay, are they really going to work for the people of Wyoming or not? We have a state treasurer who inflated government, hired 10 people to do investments for the state. And then we have counties who, though they may not have huge amounts of money, even, they don't all, but they're still doing investments. Nobody has thought about investments for the people. I propose a citizens' wealth growth investment fund, basically seeded by some of their own surplus tax money that's just sitting out there homeless. And then potentially what we could do is add in, say, maybe 10% of the revenue every year to continue to feed and grow that. So as that fund grows for the people, not only will people be able to stay in their homes, but the youth won't have to leave because they can't afford homes. But as that grows, we pay down our property taxes. Look, there's less than 600,000 of us. It shouldn't take very long to eliminate them completely. People have a right to own their home. If you can be taxed out of your home, you don't actually own your home. That is a total illusion. And so helping people to understand that we have been set up to be in a system where we can't win. We have nothing. Every single thing that goes on at the legislature does not necessarily benefit the real people who live here. It benefits everybody else, including themselves. And so that's how I really feel. But we shouldn't really be taxing people for their home ownership, because this flies in the face of private property rights. What kind of private property rights do you have if you can't actually ever own your home? So if we have a citizens' wealth investment fund, and I mean to take that forward, it's a win-win for everybody. It's growing new money. I forgot to mention I have a master's degree in business, and so I would be.
We couldn't tell that you had some business jobs. All right, I got to run, Karen, but real quick, why don't you tell my viewers how to get a hold of you?
Well, I'm on Facebook at Weber for HD5. I also have a phone number. It's 307-338-5011. You can call me anytime. And so I look forward to getting some feedback. And good hearty discussion is my thing. I love it. So thank you, David. Thank you so much.
All right, I'll be in touch here in just a few. All right.
Okay.
So
thank you.
So that was Karen Weber, and she's running for House District 5 in down around Torrington. That's an interesting race because I have heard so many stories about that economic development outfit that they have down there, and probably the funniest story I had that I've heard is that the theater owner. This economic development outfit wanted her to join because, she's got the theater, and she said no. And then she started running ads in her theater saying, hey, government doesn't need to be involved in business. I thought it was wonderfully funny. All right. So we're going to take a quick break. And then when we come back, we'll wrap up the program. So first, an outrageous profit timeout. Then we'll be back. Are you sick to death of being told what to think? Maybe you don't even realize that it's happening. Freedom Caucus bad, big spending, big government, liberal, Republican good. Conservatives are bad and they want to starve little children. I have heard it all, my friends. We are way past the time when the news was just the news, if it ever was. But wouldn't it be nice if you had a news platform that was at least honest about what they were telling you? News on the news page, opinion on the opinion page. That's exactly what the Open Range Record is. Go to the website, openrangerecord.com. News, analysis, opinion, and investigative journalism. One more time, that website is openrangerecord.com. You can listen and watch Cowboy State Politics live on YouTube, Facebook, X, and on Rumble every Tuesday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Pay attention to all that other block-headed, Borg-like so-called news if you want. But if you want to get the real story, watch Cowboy State Politics live. And now, back to the program. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live on a Wednesday. I'm your host, David Iverson, Wyoming's big voice on the right. Welcome back to the show, my friends. Thank you for putting up with me this morning. A little delayed program, but hopefully the air conditioning will be fixed. I know the repair guy is still working on it, so you gotta have some sacrifices sometimes, and it is absolutely important for me to have air conditioning. So there's a lot of races happening around the state, and if you're not on social media, it's probably hard to understand the breadth of the involvement. And almost every day, I see another nameless, faceless group on Facebook, and and some of them masquerade as news sources. There's one of them, Wyoming. I don't even know what it's called, but it looks like a newspaper article. But you can't get a name out of the person that runs it, and it's obviously AI generated, and it's very, very one-sided. There's no way, and most of what they produce is so it's not even anywhere close to being factual. So here's what I'm saying. Any information that you get, whether it's in your mailbox or whether you see it on social media or whether you get emails, check it out. Fact check it. Make sure that what you're paying attention to is the truth. And even this program and the Open Range Record, we try really hard to be accurate and prove what we're saying. But all news outlets make errors, except that this one, I make them so rarely that it's not true. I said Karen was running for Senate District 5 instead of House 5, so maybe I should just shut up about that. But make sure you're verified what it is that you're reading, okay? Don't just take anybody's word for it. Let me give you a perfect example. There are two articles on the Open Range Record right now talking about the tabulation machine testing in Sheridan County. And there was a ton of problems. The first day, and to test the tabulation machines, it should only take about 4 hours. That's it. Shouldn't really take any more than that. It is a long process, but 4 hours ought to do it. Well, the first time, which was last Monday, that the Sheridan County clerk decided to test the machines, she failed. They ran the test deck, is what they call it, but what it is a stack of sample ballots. Those failed twice. And then they decided, we got to fix this error, and we think we know what the problem is, but let's re-notify the public, and then we'll meet again on Thursday. And so that was the first article. Oh, and by the way, the clerk had already RSVP'd for the GOP debate for that evening, so she failed her test. And then she didn't show up for the debate. That's Edith Shunk Thompson, by the way. And I was the moderator of it, and I held that thing open until 1 minute before 6 o'clock because I thought, all right, maybe car trouble. It's Sheridan, so you can't really get caught in traffic too bad. But I thought, hey, let's just wait. Even though there was supposed to be a meeting at 5:30, or 5 o'clock is when I asked all the candidates to be there. Yeah, so she didn't show up, and I held everything open, didn't announce anything until right at 6 o'clock. So she just didn't show up, and my guess is she didn't want to talk about her failed test. So then that's the first article that you'll see, and let me just get you a title on that one. So the first one is Sheridan clerk fails election machine tests, then skips GOP debate without notice. So that's the first one. And then there's another article about Thursday and Friday of what happened then. And it was a long string of procedure failures. the election media, the data sticks, as they're referred to, it's a USB drive, but it's a special kind of one where you can immediately tell that this is the one you're supposed to use and not the Walmart brand. But what witnesses told the Open Range Record is that the data sticks that were available to use, they were just the plastic kind that you would pick up, like the ones you would pick up at Walmart. They weren't actually the ones in statute. The seals, which are metal bands for all the voting machines or the tabulation machines, they were just kind of strewn around the room. There was really and the office was completely open when this whole thing was supposed to kick off at 8 a.m. There's a picture on that article where you can clearly see the keys in the tabulation machines. They're in there, not a person in sight. Anybody from the public could have walked into that office and done whatever they wanted. So there's a huge string of procedure failures that happened with the testing in Sheridan County. And if there's one thing that we should be able to be sure about, to be positive that everything is going to work according to plan, it ought to be our elections. But there is no evidence whatsoever that anybody in Sheridan County should have confidence that election is going to go smoothly, because the testing didn't. I mean, it took 3 days to get a positive result out of it. So you can't argue in any way that was a success. But here's why I bring that up. One, because it's important, especially if you live in Sheridan County. But two, that you need to be paying attention to this in every county. There are some counties that have a history of having election problems. One of them is Laramie County. The Laramie County clerk, at the time, Deborah Lee, she miscounted precincts for years. And then over in Fremont County, you have Julie Freeze and her, ballot stuffing boxes that are outside of the clerk's office. So regardless of what people like Gail Simmons and Slithers Nethercott and all of the elections are perfect people, we do have problems in Wyoming. And even if we don't, you need to be vigilant about what's happening with your clerk's office. This is the one time that you get a say in your government, that you get to choose who represents you, or at least cast a vote for. So you better be darn sure that your vote is going to be counted. Now, the worst possible case scenario, I don't know. Maybe I should back up on that. But a really bad case scenario is what happened in Weston County, when a whole bunch of people, thousands of people, were disenfranchised because the machines weren't calibrated, and the clerk tried to cover up her error. Unfortunately, they've got a good clerk in Weston County right now. But the whole thing, things can go wrong, and we just need to make sure that what's being done is being done according to plan, that it follows the procedure, that everything checks out, and that come August 18th, that we can rely on the election results. And the way that you do that is you trust but verify. That when you get a chance to observe this, you go observe it. And you just need to do. You have to take responsibility for the things that are important to you. So anyway, my friends, well, that pretty much does it for today's busy broadcast hour. Thank you for putting up with me and the repair guy. It sounds like the air conditioning is on, so hopefully he did his work. So we'll be back tomorrow at our regular time, 8 a.m. So make sure that you don't miss a single minute of Cowboy State Politics Live and the podcast that's going to be published shortly after this program. But that'll do it for today's installment of the broadcast. From the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics Studio, I'm David Iverson, and this is Cowboy State Politics. See you tomorrow, my friends. Have a good afternoon.